This is Chris Martin, and we're going to take a quick look, a quick comparison between the iPad 2 and the HP Touchpad. So design-wise, as you can see, they look pretty darn similar, apart from the fact that the iPad's white and the Touchpad is black. We've got a similar sized bezel around the edge. We've got two cameras at the top, front-facing, and at the bottom we have a physical push-button kind of menu button on both, and that's all on the front. On the bottom of the touchpad we have just got a micro USB port, and that's the only port that you're going to get on the touchpad. Got volume controls, your on-off button at the top, and the headphone slot on the top also, and there's a pair of stereo speakers on the bottom. On the iPad you've got an extremely similar thing, but they're proprietary connection there. One speaker on the bottom, got volume on the side with a sliding button for your volume or screen rotation, and on the top the same thing, power button and the headphone. The iPad is still much thinner than the touchpad. The iPad is 8.8mm thick, and the touchpad is a slightly larger, 13.7mm, so it is a fair bit chunkier, and as you can see it's kind of plasticky cover rather than the iPad's aluminium cover, so it's kind of doesn't feel as nice a quality as the iPad, and that really does just attract fingerprint marks like nobody's business. So specification wise, they're also quite similar. The iPad's got a 1 GHz processor, the touchpad's got a 1.2 GHz processor, so slightly faster, and that's a Qualcomm Snapdragon. The screen sizes are both 9.7 inch. Resolution is the same at 1024 by 768. The touchpad doesn't have a rear camera, so there's nothing on the back, whereas the iPad does have a camera, if that bothers you at all. The front cameras are slightly different specs, so the iPad's is 0.3 megapixel, whereas the touchpad is a megapixel more at 1.3 megapixels for your video calling. The touchpad only comes in two different models, a 16GB and a 32GB, whereas the iPad comes in those, and you can get a 64GB version. So if storage is something you're after, the iPad does give that slightly extra amount of storage. The touchpad, obviously being a bit thicker, is weightier, so the touchpad weighs 740 grams compared to the iPad 600 grams, so it's a fair bit lighter, and that is noticeable when you're holding it with one hand. So if we switch them on, we've got similar kind of unlock things, but there's a major difference in the operating system, obviously with iOS, and HP has developed WebOS and put it on the touchpad, so a completely new operating system for the tablet market, and what you've got is this multitasking view, and HP call these cards. So you have a card for each of your apps that are open, and basically if you want to get rid of one, you just swipe it off the screen, and that closes the app, and you swipe up from the bezel on the bottom to get your apps menu in a similar way that you would have the apps on the home screen on the iPad. So you actually have an app menu, and all of these will run in real time, and you just tap one to open up the app. And if we, for example, start playing this video, if we can actually make it play the video, which it should, it won't, but a tap of the button goes back to the kind of home screen, if you like, and you can just swipe across, and you can actually stack these cards on top of each other. So if I want to drag and drop, I can drag that on top of my pictures library, for example. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but you can stack these up so that you can have related things on top of each other. I can switch the order around, so I can have them in different orders. There's a similar system as Android, really, where you've got your kind of notifications and settings up in the top corner here, so you just give it a tap and you can adjust things like the brightness and the Wi-Fi, and here's your kind of notifications. So the operating systems are quite different, and possibly one of the big differences is that the touchpad does support Flash. So if you're keen to look at websites that are made on Flash and watch videos that are Flash, then the touchpad has definitely got something over the iPad. But something the iPad has got is a decent, much bigger selection of applications from the App Store. There's something like 400 or 500,000 apps to choose from, whereas the touchpad only has 7,500 at the moment, with kind of more on the way. Things like the web browser all been completely built in, and something we do like is the fact that the keyboard, if I can get this back, you can actually resize the keyboard from somewhere. I'm not sure where, but you can actually resize the keyboard into different sizes, which is nice. Price wise, the two tablets do cost exactly the same amount for the equivalent models. So the 16GB model of each, Wi-Fi only, that is, costs £399, and the 32GB model costs £479. No 3G option for the touchpad, but that will be coming in the next few months.